Hi, this is Joe again with another movie review. This time we'll once again do another baseball film. And this one is going to be the 1988 film 8 Men Out, which of course is based on, of course, one of the most infamous and darkest moments in baseball history, which is when the 1919 Chicago White Sox conspired to throw the World Series. And of course, the reason why it's called 8 Men Out is because, obviously, it's because 8 of the players threw the World Series. And I felt it was a very good, baseball movie. Like in my previous review of Field of Dreams, we had Ray Liotta, who played Shoeless Joe Jackson, was batting right-handed, and Shoeless Joe Jackson was left-handed. Almost the same problem you had in this movie. Which, when you didn't have that with Shoeless Joe Jackson's character, but when you had one of the other players, I forgot which one it was batting left-handed. I think the opposite problem of Phil Reeves was batting left-handed, but in reality, the actual player that was being portrayed in the film was actually right-handed. So you had like the opposite problem that you had in Phil Dreams. But in terms of this film, you had Charlie Sheen, who played Happy Felch, who was a center fielder. You had John Cusack, who played Buck Weaver, the third baseman. You had D.B. Sweeney, who played Shoeless Joe Jackson. And you had, I think, Michael Rooker played Chick Gandil, who was the first baseman, and he was the guy who was the leading force to work with the Gamblers to throw the World Series. Of course, you also had Christopher Lloyd as the middleman. There's one of the two middlemen, with the main gambler was Arnold Rothstein, who was the main, main villain or main gambler to throw the World Series. And the reason why, well, at that time, in the early part of the 20th century, there was a lot of people who were got paid off by gamblers to throw a World Series. This was the first time you actually had gamblers actually trying to attempt to throw a World Series. Before then, you had players who would throw games or get paid off to do better, to drive the odds down or to improve the odds. And there was before then. So in 1919, it was almost commonplace to have a player or players by a gambler to throw games. It was the first time that an actual sporting event, individual games in the regular season is one thing, but to have an actual championship being thrown is a whole separate ball of wax. And the reason why the players wanted to throw the White Sox wanted to throw the World Series was because they were the best team, one of the two best teams in the whole, not just in the American League, but in all of baseball. The other team being Boston Red Sox. Because during the teens, really from 1916 to 1919, they alternated winning the pennant. The Red Sox won the pennant in 1916 and 1918. And of course, in both years, they won the World Series in both years. And the White Sox won the World Series in 1917 and the pennant again in 1919. So for those 4 years, they alternated the pennant, the American League pennant. But even though the White Sox was one of the best teams in baseball, but they were the worst paid team because the owner was Paul Comiskey, of course, who also owned the stadium as well, Comiskey Park, which was in the original Comiskey Park, and of course that's where the World Series took place, and of course they were treated miserably by Comiskey. For example, one of the pictures, I think it was Eddie Cicotte, when the movie was announced Eddie Cicotte, he had a clause in his bonus to, like, I think a $5,000 or $10,000 bonus in his contract if he won 30 games. With about 2 weeks to go in the season, or maybe a little more than two weeks left in the season, he won 29 games. And of course, Comiskey knew that he's going to have a couple of chances to win his 30th game of the year, so Comiskey told the manager not to pitch Sakai for the fear that he had to pay out the $10,000 bonus. And of course, because he didn't win the 39 games, he only won 29. So 29 is not 30. So of course, he didn't get the bonus, and that's why Sakai decided to join the conspiracy and throw the World Series. But one of the players who didn't want to participate was Buck Weaver, played by John Cusack in the film. As Buck Weaver claimed for the rest of his life that he didn't take the money. But of course, later on, as a famous speech by the commissioner, if he knew about what was going on and didn't report it to his ball club, he's just as guilty as the ones who threw the World Series, who was paid to throw games. That's why he was banned for life as much as everyone else, because he didn't report it. And but the movie itself was really, I think it's more from Buck Weaver's point of view, because he disputed, he was fighting with baseball for the rest of his life to get back into baseball to get his lifetime ban lifted. But the baseball gods never, they never did. And of course, that's the same rule that's affecting Pete Rose today. And of course, the movie itself, it shows, all 8 games, because it was a 9-game World Series. Even though that the White Sox were paid off to throw it, it still took them 8 games to blow it. So of course, at the time, the cynics said, "Oh, how can you claim that these guys was throwing the World Series if they took them 8 games to lose?" Well, that's one of the stinks about it. But there was still plenty of evidence that said that they were paid off by gamblers. But the movie itself, it's a very well-made, well-told film, and it's a story that people should know. And the reason why you have such a strong rule in baseball against gamblers, because people were Huey Fullerton, who was one of the 2 sports fighters in the film, along with Reed Lorimer was another one, and of course Huey Fullerton really worked with Christy Mathewson, who was the former great pitcher from the New York Giants, and the 2 of them worked together to uncover this conspiracy during the off-season of 1919 and 1920. And then, of course, they found out that they were paid, and when they came out with the story, Huey Fullerton was crucified by other media, saying, "Oh, this thing isn't true," and everything else. It's the gambler's fault, not the player's fault. And of course, because of this, people think that all the results of every single game was phony because players weren't trying their best. So because of this, the fixing of the series, the owners were panicked because the business was at stake, because they felt that fans were not going to go out to see baseball games and spend hard-earned money on something that they believe is fixed. So they created the office of the commissioner, was George Kennesaw Mountain Landis, and they picked him because he helped the owners in a federal lawsuit, because during the early part of the teens, there was this 3rd major league called the Federal League, and of course they sued Major League Baseball for not really for the copyright, for being a monopoly, for the antitrust laws. Of course, in 1922, 8 years after the lawsuit came out, they came out with a decision that baseball is exempt from antitrust laws. And Kennesaw Mountain Landis was the original federal judge in that case. So that's why he was picked to be the first commissioner. And they gave him the contract to be a commissioner for life. Wherever he says goes. And of course, that's why in 1920, after the World Series, in the film, they did have a trial for Ford. These gamblers picked them to win the World Series, and they lost all their money because the White Sox were paid off by other gamblers to throw it. And of course, Burke Weaver was mad over the fact that he didn't testify in the trial. That he, wanted to testify, and no one was willing to hear his story. And he made this outburst. I don't know if it actually happened, but in the movie, he made a speech saying, "Look, no one could prove that I took any money. I mean, if I was throwing it, look at my record in the World Series." And he expected anybody how can you expect to believe that I threw the World Series? Look at my stats, World Series stats. Because one of the other players, I think Pete Wiesberg, who was a shortstop, says, "Come on, Buck, sit down. No one cares about your batting average." And I mean, that was the attitude that the players had against each other. Because all the players pretty much hated each other in the White Sox. And, of course, in the film, actually, they got off in the trial. And the day after the verdict, that's when you had the famous line or the famous speech by Commissioner Landis. They're saying, "Oh, despite the verdict of the juries, any ball player who throws a ball game, any player who conspires to throw a game, any player who sits in conference with a bunch of crooked players and gamblers, and the reason means that a game is thrown or fixed, and does not properly tell his club about it, will never play professional baseball again." And of course, that's the rule that's in every clubhouse in all 30 ballparks in the major leagues. And the reason why gambling is so treated harshly and not the current steroid use, even though using steroids is a felony, and not gambling is not a felony. But drugs are in reality, but baseball is the opposite. Because people were so outraged that people were allowed, or gamblers were allowed to pay off these players to throw games or to throw championships. So that's why they have a stronger law on gambling than they have with steroid use. And if the rule was just as strong against gambling as or against steroids, guys like Bonds, Clemens, Sosa, McGuire, those guys should not even be on the ballot. Because we all know that those guys, lying on the roll, lying through the teeth, has proven they were taking drugs, and they're on the ballot in the Hall of Fame. And guys like Pete Rose, who's only been accused, found that he was gambling. He never took drugs in his life, so it's not proven, in my opinion, that he was gambling during his baseball career, where he was actually playing, only when he was a manager. They can't prove that he didn't gamble while he was playing, even though there was proof otherwise. But certainly they go off on this little man here with Pete Rose, but they have the same rule with gambling as they did with steroids as they did with gambling. That all the steroid guys will also not even be eligible for the Hall of Fame, even be on the ballot. But back to Eight Men Out was one of the few movies that came out in recent years. It's actually in the last 20 years, was more than 25 years now. In the last 30 years, it's actually based on a true person. true event. So, for my review of the movie, I think it's one of the better baseball films because of that. Instead of one of the stereotypical baseball films, but at the end the movie is a championship game at some level. This one, of course, deals with the 1919 World Series and how it was fixed. And it does show every single game in the series. But that's my review. But in terms of a baseball film, it's one of the better ones because it's based on a true event. Thank you for but as a movie, I like the movie. It's very watchable, and any baseball fan should watch this movie. But that's my review of Ip Man Now. Thank you for watching. Please like the video. Please comment on. Please also please subscribe to my channel. And thank you for watching.